I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On today's show, we're discussing USMNT striker Patrick Agyemang and his performance this season at Derby County in the English Championship. And to help me do that, I've invited Lee Curtis to join the show. Lee is the Derby County writer for the Derby Telegraph. Lee, welcome to the show. Let's start at the beginning. Agyemang came to the club over the summer during the transfer window. Why did Derby County want to bring him to the club in the first place?
Since Derby were taken over in the summer of 2022, obviously to give fans a quick potted history, the club was in dire financial straits, but it got rescued in the summer of 2022. A local businessman came in, David Clowes, and bought the club, saved the club really. It was like a knight in shining armour because there'd been some failed takeover attempts beforehand, a lot of talk from a lot of people, a lot of tyre kickers. But David put his hand in his pocket and rescued the club. But with that, they've sort of... because they haven't got the kind of money that you would expect, I think probably the best example to use here would be Wrexham and the likes of Ryan Reynolds, etc. They don't have that kind of money. So while David is a wealthy man, that their business model has to be to find players who they think they can develop, who they then can either help them achieve their objectives on the pitch or make them a big buck in return. So that's been a steady progress since 2022, really. They got the players they needed to get out of League One, which were a lot of them were here and now players. Those players who carried a great deal of experience that would help them, that were better than those that were at the level of League One, really. But as time's gone on, they've started to invest in talent from abroad and obviously America. So to give you an example, they've signed players like Jacob Vidal Zetterstrom from Sweden, a young goalkeeper. I think they paid £2 million for him. So, he's a young player who has that potential to develop. Now, when we got to this summer, Patrick was obviously a target because Derby wanted and have been seeking for a long time a centre forward that they feel they can develop, can get goals, and either be a very good striker in the Championship and help them get to the Premier League, or be a striker that can be successful. He may not help them with their objectives on the pitch, however, would make them a lot of money. They could sell him, then take that money, reinvest it in the team, and then improve their team. And on top of what David could afford to put in the club. So very similar to the Brighton and Brentford models, really. Patrick was scouted extensively, very raw, but he's already paid his fee back in spades. I mean, I'd probably say he's already double, if not 3 times worth than what Derby paid for him, based on what he's done so far.
How much did they pay for him? Is that
about 5.9 million?
5.9 million. Okay, wow. Yeah, I mean, that's what I want to get into next, is what you've thought about his performance so far this season. You've had, I guess it's been about 6 months to watch him. I know he was injured at first, so he didn't start the season right away. But
yeah,
tell me more about your impressions of him and his performance this season.
Well, obviously you touched upon it. We had to wait a while to get a good glimpse of him because he came. There was this big fanfare about his arrival, and obviously I'd watched him play in the Gold Cup. I think it was for the US national team. So there was this quite a big buzz around him. I think we were all aware that he was quite raw because he'd not come up through what I would call here in England is the academy system. He didn't join a professional club through their youth system, come up through the ranks, played in like the Premier League 2 or whatever, and then eventually made that step into the first team. So we were all expecting to be quite raw, but he had all the attributes. So it was just waiting really for him to get fit and then show us what he could do. And the problem that he immediately faced was he obviously had to get up to match fitness because he'd missed pre-season, and Derby had given him a bit of a break, and obviously he needed an operation as well. So that was a challenge for him at first. And then he came on against West Brom as a substitute. And in those 10 minutes that he had on a pitch, he caused West Brom numerous problems, and he had a hand in the equaliser for Andy Vyman. Oh, sorry, the winner, should I say, because it was a 1-0 win. So, of course, immediately when he came off the bench and did that, the fans were immediately chanting USA, USA. So yeah, he immediately stood out. Now, as time has gone on, Carlton Morris at the time was playing as the lone striker, and Patrick was playing on the left. Really, he was playing as a bit of a winger with the sort of instruction that he could come inside off the left wing and join up with the attack. But then Carlton Morris got injured against Watford, which was a particularly bad injury. Did his ankle. So Patrick was tasked with leading the line. Now, as the weeks have gone on, since he first came into the team, he's just got better and better. He's got used to the league because I think he found the physicality quite demanding. You know, you're playing, some weeks you've got 3 games in 7 days, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. And I think that was tough for him. I think because obviously the MLS schedule isn't nowhere near as demanding as what you would get across a 46 game season in the Championship. But as he's taken that time to develop, you can see that he's really enjoying himself. He's slowly adapting to the physicality of the league, and what I mean about that is when he first came in, I think he found the whole physical aspect in terms of having defenders up his backside every 2 minutes. I think he found that because they're obviously quite aggressive. I think he found that a bit of an issue to start off with, but he's learned, or he's learning to deal with that far better. And he's been, in the last month or two, he's been phenomenal, really phenomenal. I mean, last night, we're obviously speaking now 24 hours or so after the Hull game last night. For the first half last night, it was his best 45-minute performance I've seen from a player this season at Derby. He was untouchable. The Hull couldn't get near him. He was going in behind. He was coming short to get the ball. He was spinning in behind. And the only thing that was missing from him really was a goal. I mean, he went on 2 incredible runs and just couldn't apply the finishing touch, which I think is probably an area where he could get better. But yeah, I mean, to think that he's only 24, 25, you know, he's got so much ability that he's got a very, very big future ahead of him. There's no question about it.
Yeah. I mean, 10 goals, 3 assists so far this season. I think he's tied for the team lead in goals. Yeah. That 10 goals, I think 10 goals is the most he ever scored for Charlotte FC in a season. So he's already kind of accumulated his personal, season high. What formation does Derby usually play, and how are they using Patrick now? Is he kind of a lone striker up top, or?
Yeah, so basically what happened was, when he has played alongside Morris, sometimes if John's played in a 3-5-2, but the manager here, the head coach, his ideal formation is 4-2-3-1, 2 sitting midfielders, 2 sixes really, a 10 wingers and a lone frontman. So when Carlton got injured, Patrick sort of moved from the left wing up top on his own, and what I like about him is, and he reminds me as a cheap man's version of Hugo Ekitike, if that makes sense. He's got the build of a winger, but he plays as a centre forward. It's hard to explain. He's got, he could play left wing, no problem, but actually he's probably better. It's a bit like Thierry Henry, really. Like Thierry Henry started as a winger before he moved centrally, and I see many similarities, although obviously nowhere near as good or nowhere near the finished article. But sort of that player who's comfortable playing off the wing, but uses those skills and those attributes and that skill set to make a very formidable centre forward because he's got pace. He's quick. He's got good feet. He's probably got the best feet, I think, out of the forward players at the club in terms of he's got a trick. So yeah, he's at the moment he's playing as the lone front man, and obviously he's coming up against two centre halves at times, three centre halves if the other team's playing through at the back. But yeah, and what is noticeable is that other teams' managers now are starting to mention him. Whereas before at the start, I mean, they got beat at Watford at the weekend derby. But in the post match press conference, Ed Still said that he was one of the best strikers in the Championship, and I think that just shows or underlines clearly how well he's progressing. Because I think when other managers start to mention you in press conferences, then you must be doing something right.
Yeah. Well, that's surprising to me. About you kind of seeing his maybe strengths on the wing. I've always thought because he's a big guy, he's this huge guy. He fits the profile of the guy up front who's going to get a lot of headers and whatnot. But you're saying because of his speed, that you think he really excels on the wing. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what he's good at. I mean, ideally I would like to see him stay as a number 9. But if for instance, let's say, I don't know, you get to the World Cup for USA in the summer, and Pochettino's thinking, right, okay, maybe I can play Hadji right down the middle, but how can I get Agyemang there? Agyemang can play left wing, no problem. He's already done it here. So, if that's an option, he can play in a 2, can play as a 1. He's very versatile, I think, in that respect. But he does have the move. He's a bit of a freak, really, because he's 6'4", and over here you're a bit like, well, 6'4", big players. You presume they're just all about being strong and a target man, a good old fashioned English target man. But he's not one of those. He's not one of those. Physically, I don't think he uses his body well enough to be a target man. Although he's good in the air, he's not what I would call somebody like an Ollie McBurney, who they played last night, who's very, very good with his back to goal, relishes the physical battle. Whereas Patrick, I think, is one of those centre forwards who likes the ball in behind. You've got to get it into the space behind because he's got good pace. He likes 1v1 situations. He seems to relish those. He's always keen to take players on. And he has scored goals of all types since he's been here. So I'd like to see him stay as a number 9, but he could play as a left wing or a right winger, no problem at all.
Okay. Well, you've used this word kind of raw a few times, and that's a word I hear a lot about Patrick when from pundits and fans over here. It's just how raw he is because he didn't have the same kind of traditional path in football that other players have had. Does that get meant? I mean, I guess I'm wondering in terms of the upside of that. Do you still think he has, is he getting less raw with his time over there? And do the coaches talk about how there's just a tremendous upside for him because he has, maybe so much to learn and still develop?
Yeah, I think so. If you were to have the complete reels of Patrick's time at Derby so far, from when he first came in to what he looks like as a player now, it's chalk and cheese. And I think obviously when players come out to England, it's the same whether they would come from, I don't know, Holland or Belgium or America, Spain. I think that there is this time that they need to adapt to this, not specifically the physical aspect, because I think to play 90 minutes of football, you have to be, you're fit. But what I mean is the speed of the game. The speed of the game in the Championship is quick. And then when you get to the Premier League, it's even quicker. If you have no pace, I don't think you're really going to have a very good career. Because if you think about the very best players, they're always quick, technically amazing, but fundamentally have got the pace that really hurts opposition teams, particularly in an attacking sense. So yeah, I mean, there are things that he can improve, like his touch. I think can get better. I still think his first touch sometimes can be a bit loose. For somebody of his size, and I know what you're saying, and this is probably why Carlton Morris is good for him, because Carlton is traditionally that striker who can play with his back to goal, doesn't mind the physical battles, and will put himself about, will annoy and upset defenders, doesn't mind it, doesn't take it as an offence. It's almost like a privilege. Oh, you want to fight me today? I love that. Like, right, let's have a fight. Whereas I think Patrick's a bit like, yeah, I'm still not too sure about that. But once he cracks that, I think he's got everything to be the complete centre forward. Honestly, I do, because he's got the pace, he's got the tricks. He needs to improve his finishing prowess. I think although he's shown us that he's very good with some of his finishing. There were a couple of chances last night that he got himself in some great positions, and all it was missing was that final touch. The second chance he had last night, particularly 1v1 with a goalkeeper, either side of the goalkeeper it's him, but it was straight at him. And it's those moments, I think, where he has to just get back on the training ground, just keep, repetition, work as hard as he can, because he's got everything, I would say, to make fundamentally a brilliant championship striker, with one that potentially could play in the top flight if he knits it all together. But everything is there. Some players you look at and you think, well, he's not got this, he's not got that. He has everything. He has all the athletic attributes that you could want, and he's got the tricks and everything that you could want from a winger, and he's also got that ability to really upset defenders who aren't as quick as him. And he
Yeah.
has been subjected to some underhand treatment, that's fair to say, but he's got everything there, but he is getting better all the time. And I think John, who's Derby's head coach, has really worked hard with him in terms of making sure you make the runs at the right times. You're getting flagged offside a bit when he was here, making sure you stay on side, always check your shoulders. It just little things really, but yeah, he's coming on really, really well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the other thing I hear a lot about him is he's a handful for defenders,
Yeah,
because a lot of people, like during the goal, you mentioned watching him during the Gold Cup. Some of the complaints about him was, okay, yeah, he can't finish. He gets himself in good positions, but he's not finishing. But then a lot of pundits who maybe have played the striker role and have a little bit more knowledge about the nuance of the position bring up just how many problems he causes for defenders
yeah,
that open up, possibilities for other players that create chaos and whatnot.
yeah.
Do you see that
Oh yeah,
type of thing?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean he is. I mean, to give you an example, last night against Hull, the defensive line was pushing towards the halfway line. There was one moment in the second half, and this is what I mean about underhand tactics, because you can see that he does get frustrated with it. But he knew, and obviously they've worked in it, Derby. The ball was going to go in behind, so he's playing against the centre half. He's not particularly quick. His movement caught him out. The defender dragged him down. Referee completely missed it. The manager went berserk. And Patrick was almost like, "Oh my, how has that happened?" But it's those kind of moments where he just takes defenders into. I think he's quite clever. He just seems to take defenders in uncomfortable positions. So he recognises, perhaps, if I play on the shoulder of this centre half, he's not as quick as me. If I can get the ball in behind, or I make that run, I'll have it. I'll do him for pace. I mean, there was one moment last night. I mean, really, last night he could have come away with 2 goals and about 3 assists. Derby created some great chances on the back of his approach play in the box. And like I say, he had 2 chances himself, but he is a handful. He is particularly over the last couple of months, it's been really noticeable. Defenders really don't like facing him, because he's got that pace, he's got physicality, he's good in the air. I mean, he's 6'4" sometimes. And some of the goals he's scored this season, he scored a brilliant header at Bristol City. He's got a great leap. So yeah, he's coming on really well. He's coming on really well, and yeah, there is not many centre halves will relish facing him, because if he gets you in a foot race, you're in trouble, and
Yeah.
if he squares you up, you're also in trouble as well, because he's got really good feet.
Yeah. Well, this is good. I'm glad we're talking because I'm learning something here. I think I've thought about his size as the biggest problem, for defenders, but you're making me realize that I've been underestimating his pace as
Yeah,
well. And I mean, those two things together, size and pace,
yeah.
is going to be a lot for a defender to handle.
I
Let's
well,
talk.
I mean, I think he's going to give Pochettino a big problem, because I think obviously he didn't make the last USA squad, did he? So there's obviously an international break coming up in March next month. I'd be well, I think it would be a travesty if he doesn't make the squad. It would be an absolute given his form, he should have done more than enough. And I know obviously Josh Sargent's had his problems, hasn't he, this season? Hadji Wright went off the boil of Coventry, sort of dipped down the table a little bit, and then obviously went back to the summit over the weekend. But I think it would be a travesty if he didn't make the squad, and I hope for his sake he does make it, because I think for how well he's played, I think if he doesn't, that would be a real setback for him.
Yeah. I think he'll be there. I think Potts really likes him. The U.S., they don't have this anymore, but they used to have these January camps that were
Yeah,
not during a FIFA international window. And it was traditionally a
right.
time to bring in young MLS players to kind of get a look at them.
Hmm.
And the first January camp that Pochettino had, in the very first friendly, he started Patrick Agyemang and he scored a goal.
Yeah,
And so ever since then, he has been more or less a regular with the U.S. men's national team. But I think Potts really saw something in him in that very first camp. I
yeah,
think he likes him. And with his form, I would be shocked if he's not brought in. I mean, it is a lot of folks see the U.S. striker depth chart as Fuller and Balogun from Monaco, number one,
yeah,
Ricardo Pepi from PSV, number two, and then Agyemang and Hadji Wright kind of duking it out for this number
yeah. It's
three.
that those two for that one last spot. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I personally think Agyemang has passed him. And I also think it's possible that at the end of the day, Pochettino might bring, four strikers anyway, so it won't
mm,
matter. But I do think Agyemang has passed Wright, although Wright, I mean, he's a little more hot and cold. I mean,
yeah,
as you probably know, he'll go on a goalless streak for a lot of months, and then he'll
yeah. And then they
score
all
three
come like
goals in a
buses, don't
match.
they? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. We'll have a lot better idea of the pecking order, I think, when we do see this March roster that Pochettino, announces in a couple weeks now. Well, I want to maybe talk a little bit more about how high you think Agyemang's level is compared to maybe the top competition. I mean, it seems that Derby has been kind of flirting with the top six in
Yeah.
the championship all season. Right now, I see they're in 11th,
Hmm.
but only 6 points out of six, which would get them into the promotion playoffs. How do you think, Patrick? If Derby did make it into the Premier League, do you see him as a Premier League level striker?
Uh, it's a good question, because I think at the moment I would be. I mean, there was talk of Crystal Palace and Leeds sort of monitor him in January, although that got shot down pretty quickly. But I would be very surprised if the lower end Premier League teams, and what I mean by that is somebody like a West Ham or a Crystal Palace, for instance, or a Leeds United, even aren't keeping him under close watch, because fundamentally he's got the one attribute, which is his pace, and I think that's it. That's important. I think they'll look at his size. And see that for an athlete, because he's 6'4" and he can really shift, I think that would also help his cause a lot for playing in the Premier League, because it's very rare that For someone who's 6'4", usually they're not the quicker. I'm 6'4", and I run like a drunk giraffe. So yeah. So he's incredibly quick for his size. And I think that, and the fact he can score goals of all types as well. He scored some fantastic headers. He scored tap-ins. He scored a terrific finish at Sheffield Wednesday. So he has all these things in the locker. I think what he needs to do next, and this will be key, is be more consistent. Over the last month or so, last couple of months or so, he's been brilliant, but he's just got to keep on producing that level of performance, really. And I think he's got to tighten up on a few areas of his game. But I think a lot of Premier League sides will constantly be keeping him under review because, as I've mentioned, he is a bit of a freak of nature in many respects. And he's unpredictable because he hasn't come through the academy system in England. And possibly, obviously, I don't not quite sure of how it works in America, but because I know he obviously came through the college system, didn't he, in
Yeah.
America, rather than sort of like the traditional, I don't know, join an MLS club at an early age and come through the route there. He's unpredictable because what I find, and this is my biggest complaint about our academy football in England, is the young players are always coached the same way. They almost get their individuality is coached out of them because a lot of the emphasis is on, right, well, we've got to be technically good, we've got to be able to pass the ball, you've got to be have a good you've got to we play in a certain way, we knock it around the back. If you get it, you play it safe, you play one touch or two touch. And a lot of players, exciting players, I think sometimes get told that you can't be a street footballer anymore. Whereas you look at somebody like a Rooney or Messi, or for instance, one of those top players who have that raw individual ability, and when they come through, they stick out like a sore thumb because they're individual, they have their own style, and they've just been allowed to flourish. And Patrick has that unpredictability, and that's what makes him exciting. That's why defenders don't like facing him, because you sometimes don't know what is he going to take me on the outside? Is he going to come on the inside? Is he going to stand across up to the back post, or is he going to get to the byline because he can do that? Is he going to go short? Is he going to spin behind me? So he's got all these things that he can do, and he's a bit unpredictable with it, and that's what I think helps him, and his athleticism, obviously. So I would be very surprised if Premier League teams aren't keeping tabs on him. Whether he can get to that level depends on how he continues to develop. Right now, he's doing exactly the right thing, but he needs the thing that he needs to do if he wants to be guaranteed that top flight is he needs to be hitting the 15 to 20 goal barrier pretty much every season. A bit like Ollie Watkins did at Brentford before he went to Villa. He's got to be on that bracket, and he's got to be helping Derby being with a shout of getting promoted to the Premier League. He's got to be hitting 15 to 20 goals, and he's on 10 already. So it's conceivably, I would imagine he's on course to reach 15 this season. So yeah, it's very exciting for him, and exciting for Derby to see whether he helps them to the Premier League or earns them a bucket load of cash. So
Yeah.
either way, they win.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly been exciting to watch him kind of progress over there. Well, Lee, last question for you. You cover the team day in, day out. You're
Yeah.
around these players. Any, I don't know, stories, anecdotes about Patrick you can share with us? Things about his personality, something funny you've seen, anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, you just reminded me, actually. Two things. So I went to interview him not long after he arrived, and I had a sit down with him, and we didn't do it in the. There's a media room at the training ground, so I didn't. It was a nice day, so I was a bit like, do you know what? It's a bit stuffy in the media room. Let's just sit outside and we'll just chew the fat. Um, and yeah, so I was talking to him about his move to England and how he found it, and he couldn't get his head round the driving.
Oh,
Like,
on a different side of the road.
different side of the road, completely flummoxed him for the first few days. So that was amusing for one. He was like, "What the hell is this? Like, you guys drive on the wrong side of the road." Like, so I think that took some getting used to. And then secondly, he he did this piece. I don't know whether you've seen it. He did this piece, I think, for the Football League where he tasted um, English food or English sweets. I think it was more specifically, or snacks. I think more specifically. And I always remember he got given a twiglet. I'm pretty sure it was a twiglet, yeah. And I don't know. Do you guys get twiglets?
What is it? What is a twiglet?
I mean, they're disgusting, mate. Honestly, they are. I don't like them. These people who do like them, I have no issue, but they must have different wired taste buds to me because I don't get it. But they're like a crispy snack, but they're very they're not like chips. So like I love your Fritos, right? Fritos, I love them. The little curly ones. My
Yeah, me
friend gets
too.
them imported from America. Amazing. Like the little dips, brilliant, right? They're tasty. They're a bit like that, but just really bitter. It's
Okay.
just yeah, that's the best way to put it. It's just got a bitter taste, but they're like a crisp snack. Um, very bitter. Anyway, so they were going through this, and he got handed this twiglet, and suffice to say, he was not impressed. So,
He didn't
I
spit it out, did he?
well, I don't think he was far off. But I said to him, I said, "You are a man close to my own heart because I can't bear twiglets either." And I think he had a gold bar, which is like this. It's like a snack chocolate bar. Very, if you can see my head, it's not very big at all. I'm trying to think what the size of it would be to you over there. Uh, do you get Kit Kats? You do get Kit
Yeah,
Kats
we
over
get
there,
Kit
don't you?
Kats. Yeah.
So a double finger Kit Kat, probably about the same size as a double finger Kit Kat. But it's called a gold bar because it's like caramelized and the outside of it's biscuit in the middle and it's gold, like a gold caramelly texture on the outside. And yeah, he buzzed off them. He loved them.
Oh yeah.
So
Huh.
he was definitely a big fan of those because that I think he must have woofed that down in about 10 seconds.
Oh
And then
wow.
he came after he tested. He was like, "What do you think to that?" Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I love that. Buzzing off that. So yeah, so
Oh.
that's quite funny. But he seems a good guy. But I also think he's got a bit of an edge about him, particularly when he plays. I think he wants to stay on the pitch all the time, and sometimes he's not going to get that, and I think he's going to have to get used to that. But I think. I do like that. He's got a bit of an edge. He likes to argue with the referees. He likes to make he likes to get his point across. So yeah, he's a lot going for him. I like him. He's a good lad. He's a good lad, and he's a very very good player.
Yeah, he's a very likable guy. I mean, he's always got that
Yeah,
big
very
smile on
likable.
his
Yeah,
face. Always enjoyed listening to interviews with him, and yeah, I mean, he's piqued the interest of a lot of U.S. fans over here that I know are keeping an eye on him. Kind of came out of nowhere in terms of the U.S. men's national team. I mean, you go back a year ago, a little over a year ago, nobody would have tabbed him to be somebody that could make a World Cup roster, and now he's right there in the thick of it. So great player to watch. Well, thank you, Lee, so much for coming on the show. I will make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at @LeeCurtis_DT, and
yeah,
also to
lovely.
your work at the Derby Telegraph. Thanks so much for coming on.
No problem at all. Thank you very much.
And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with the new episode.